Hi there, I'm Namish Patel Owen, and you're listening to Live Your True Self, episode number 51. After 18 years doing corporate, in 2018 it became about doing me and doing what I love. It wasn't that long ago that I too felt stuck, lost, and asking myself, who am I anyway, and what's my purpose? Full of self-doubt, fear of failure, and confusion. Fast forward to this moment and you'll see a version of me that's true to myself, calm, confident, and clearer than ever before, inspired by Krishna's words in the Bhagavad Gita. One must deliver himself with the help of the mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So perspective is everything, and no matter where you find yourself on your spiritual journey, allow me to guide you to drop out of your head the busyness in your mind and drop into your heart the sacred space that holds your beautiful soul, so that you too can awaken your true self and live life more meaningfully in this moment. Take a deep breath and listen on in. Hello, my lovely. Welcome back. How are you? I hope you're well and all is good with you. I am stepping into celebration mode, and honestly, I have to say, it feels so good. As high achievers, we do not celebrate enough. And I know that from my own tendencies, but I also know that from my clients. We are all about moving forward onto the next thing and the next thing. And celebrating is not something we do consciously and intentionally, but I am inviting myself to celebrate. So we had last week's podcast, which was celebrating 50 episodes, and today marks 5 years in business, and I'm dedicating this podcast to celebrating 5 years in my coaching business. And actually, let me just tell you a quick story. At the weekend, we had some lovely weather, and I wanted to treat my daughter because she deserved it for going through something. And so I offered her to buy her a hot chocolate because we were in town. And then, because it was so nice weather-wise, I actually suggested an ice cream, and I treat her to an ice cream. And I said, let's get one and have it as we walk back to the car, which was about 15 minutes away. So we're in town and we could have the ice cream on the way home. And she was like, no, I would much prefer we get a 4-pack ice cream and we all have one together when we get home, which is just so sweet and so thoughtful. This is just so her. And that's what we did. And she picked ice creams, a 4-pack based on, something that I would have. And she's like, oh, Mum, which one I get? And I'm like, just choose whatever you fancy. She's like, no, but which one would you have? Like, she was really insistent and wanting me to have one and all 4 of us to have an ice cream together. And so she picked what she wanted to pick. And then we got home, and for the first time this year, we cleaned up the garden furniture, and all 4 of us sat outside in the sun and ate a Magnum. And it was so nice and such a lovely way to celebrate. And as I say, now I was so insistent on me having one because I don't normally being vegan, and I don't really tend to go for the vegan ice creams. But anyway, she chose an almond one just for me, almond Magnum just for me. And I have to say, I actually ate it without any judgment and just lots of gratitude and lots of celebration. And I allowed myself to be in the moment with my beautiful family, with the birds chirping and the warmth of the sun radiating on all of us. And we all loved it. We all loved it. We had a lovely family moment together and a lovely celebration. And then we got to work gardening. And, you know, sometimes it's the little things that can have a big impact on how we feel. And that moment for me was a beautiful example of a lovely way to celebrate. And so, as I said, today, literally this day, 18th of April, marks 5 years as the director of my company, Namish Patel Owen Coaching Limited, and when I officially launched the business and received my certificate from Companies House. So 5 years, like, part of me can't believe it. It's gone so fast, but it has been a journey. I set up the business after leaving corporate after 18 years and actually a period of illness. And the kids were 5 and 1 back then. And honestly, I had no idea really what I was in for, what I was doing or how I would do it. I just knew that this work, you know, helping people be a better version of themselves and helping people turn inwards and really feel more confident in who they are, and, you know, like helping them navigate through change and life's experiences, this was my calling. And this is why I was on the planet, to grow personally and professionally in all those areas, and also help other people like me, heart-centered, ambitious, high achievers, do the same. And so it was a privilege. It really was a privilege to leave corporate and to set up the business and honor my calling and really pursue my purpose in the way that I did, and the timing and everything. It was just all perfect. But I am still getting my head around the fact that it's been 5 years and there has been so much growth and learning and fails, of course, and we've spoken about that on the podcast. But as I say, I am so grateful for these past 5 years, not only the journey I have been on, but importantly, who I have helped and the lives I've helped people transform, and also who I've become in the process, and the role model that I am for my kiddos. And when I was thinking about who I've become, again, going back to like this idea of blowing your own trumpet, because that's what celebrating's all about. We're celebrating something or someone. And that's what I'm doing here. Like, I am celebrating both. Not only have I become an amazing coach and a program creator, which is my signature coaching program, Be the Energy, but I've also become a marketer, a saleswoman, a graphic designer, a copywriter, a networker, a motivational speaker, a LinkedIn and Instagram contributor, a website designer, a tech guru, you could say, using Kajabi, which is a software platform that I use, using Zoom for my networking, using GarageBand for my podcast, iMovie for all my course material, Canva for graphics. I've become my very own assistant, so I do all those things. And then I also do, you know, all the administrative tasks and activities. I've become a tax bod in terms of having to do all the kind of formal corporation tax and financial side of things. And of course, I've become a podcast producer and host, which is where you find me. So, this is who I've become, and I'm sure I've left a few things out in and amongst that. But I've done all of these things, and I wear all of these hats, and I have learnt so much in the process. I have learnt so many new skills, and I know that will just compound, and my skill set will just continue to grow. And also, along with that, I have created the mindset to support and navigate through all these roles and become the person who can do these things in my own unique way, consistently, and this is just what I do and who I've become. So when I was thinking about preparing this podcast, there were so many different approaches I could have taken and things I could share, and I could go down different angles to really mark this 5-year point and this significant milestone in my business with you, my beautiful friend. And what I really thought about was, what if I could share the one thing that would give you an insight of my journey? What would that be? What would I want to know if I was a new business owner just starting out, listening to someone's podcast titled Live Your True Self and celebrating 5 years in business? What would I want to hear? And when I was contemplating that, it became really clear. It's all about lessons learning, and learning from someone who inspires me, who has gone first, or who is ahead of me on a similar path and similar journey. And that lesson learning being a way of celebrating. And so I am sharing my 10 biggest lessons I've learnt over 5 years in my coaching business. And let me just say, I have so many lessons, as I said, and I wanted to come up with my 5 biggest ones in keeping with 5 years. This is where my brain went. But it was just so tricky for me to just keep to 5 and come up with 5. So I thought, let's keep it to 10. But I really challenged myself to keep it to the 10 biggest ones, my top 10 lessons, because honestly, there are so many. And today I'm sharing those, and maybe another time I'll create another podcast with a few more lessons, because really all the lessons are so valuable. But today we're focusing on my top 10. And let me just say, whether you're a business owner, running your own business, or in the corporate world and a corporate career, everything I'm sharing is relevant and valuable and applicable no matter what you do and what career you're in. But before we dive in, let me share my thoughts and the foundation and the energy behind the lessons that I'm going to share, just so you can get a sense of where I'm coming from. Firstly, it goes without saying that I am super proud of my business and everything we have accomplished over this 5 years. It blows my mind just thinking about how much we have achieved together, and just relaying all those various roles and skill sets, and then the supporting mindset that I have to go with it is phenomenal. Like literally, I am so proud, so proud. Secondly, I think of my business as my third baby. In addition to my two kiddos, who at this point are 10 and 7, it's like I birthed this baby too, right? 5 years ago. I had the idea for 9 months, let's say, and I let it grow and develop and kind of marinate. And then on this day, 5 years ago, it was born. And it was like something that I birthed. And that's how I think of it. And so no matter what, I love my business baby, just like I love my kiddos. It's my life and soul. It's part of who I am now. And through thick and thin, I will be here to provide for it, to serve it, to nurture it, to take care of it, to grow it, to defend it, and to be responsible for it no matter what happens, rather than the other way around, right? So like I don't expect anything from my business in return, especially in this growth phase, right? It's just like no conditions. Just like I don't have with my kiddos. It's just unconditional love, and me fulfilling my duties for the business as the business owner and the director of the company. And that's just the way I think of it. And thirdly, again, in preparation for this podcast, I asked myself how I feel about my business at this point, 5 years in, how I feel about my business. And the feeling that came up for me was determined. And that's contained in the title of the podcast, which is Determined, Celebrating 5 Years in Coaching. Because, like, genuinely at this point, that is how I feel. I feel determined to keep going and to keep growing my business no matter what. Finally, let me give you some context behind the past 5 years in terms of the external circumstances. I launched the business, as I said, in April 2019. And that year was really me getting going and establishing myself and my offer and my coaching package. And I did a couple of in-person workshops, which were great, and I was really kind of finding my feet and got some momentum and started connecting and networking and just planning business life and the way forward. And then in March 2020, of course, COVID hit. And the kiddos were 3 and 7 back then. And after the initial reality of what was enforced kind of kicked in, and the schools getting organised to bring learning online, I quickly went from kind of coach and business owner to carer and homeschooler. And that went on for about a year. And I know that, there are people out there who navigated, the homeschooling and ran businesses and went to work and all the things. And, it was a tricky time for everybody for different reasons. But I think for me, particularly getting sick, I kind of struggled because I didn't want to get sick having previously had a batch of viruses and, been off sick for 6 months. And we also kind of had vulnerable parents, and that was always a worry. And, I felt compelled to keep the kids safe and keep us safe. And, my energy and my capacity, mental capacity, was just focused on that. And that's how it needed to be. So I had a couple of clients and we went virtual, and largely I kind of mothballed the business, kind of put it on hold, so to speak. So no real marketing or networking. I focused on the current reality, and it was a day-to-day thing, keeping myself well, mentally stable, and also keeping my family safe and well, and yeah, just kind of keeping contained and doing our thing day to day. And we had the second lockdown. So from what recall, it was about September 2021, when the kids finally went back to school that autumn, kind of fully, full time. And at that point, I re-emerged with kind of what I call version 2 of the business. And I have to say, this was the best time because I'd had time to reflect and evaluate and refocus in terms of how I wanted to do things going forward. Having sort of had 1 year in business, then let's just say a year and a bit kind of out. And things were stable goes, though. I guess the real other sort of personal aspect over the last, from then on, was that sadly we lost my dad in January 23, and I spent a bit of time toing and froing to India and back during sort of December and February. So the previous December and then February 23. And so the past 18 months has been also tricky, navigating the personal side of grief, and sort of just coming to terms with what was happening, and again conserving my energy. But deep down I know he's free from suffering, and he's in the best place, and he's looking down on me and my family, and he's super, super proud. And that was just something that happened that I'm navigating through. So even though it's been a roller coaster ride with twists and turns over 5 years in the business, I believe time teaches us so much, and that life is 50-50 always, and there is growth and learning in all of it. So with that said, let's dive in. Here are my 10 biggest lessons I've learnt over 5 years in my coaching business. And let me just say, you're going to want to take some notes because I am sharing some gold. So grab your pen and notebook because you are going to want to write some of this down. So number 1, keep it simple and fun. My brain has a tendency to want to complicate things and overthink things, and it's a trait of being a high achiever. So this lesson is super important for me. And in fact, deep down, I actually like to be simple. I always have, to be fair, and I actually am simple, as simple goes. And I like things to be simple. But I have a sort of perfectionist trait, where I like things to be, in a particular way and at a certain level. And that sometimes muddies things for me and makes things more complicated than perhaps they have to be. So I always come back to keep it simple and fun. with anything that I'm doing in my business, because I believe that when it comes to business, simple sells. And when I'm having fun doing something, when it comes to marketing and selling and coaching, it feels so good and it feels so much better and loving and inviting and lighthearted, and you just want to do more of it. And so my business strategy early on, and this was probably post lockdown, as things started to go online and Zoom was just like, a thing, and online networking became a thing. But the business strategy that I leaned into, and actually and continue to lean into even now, is simply to meet fun, interesting, and resourceful people, and then just let the rest unfold. And my objective was to basically fill up my diary with meeting and connecting with people, having human conversations, like listening generously and being interested in the purpose, in the person. And the one question that I guess I did have in my mind was simply to ask them, depending on what they were saying and what conversation we were having, if appropriate and whenever it felt right, was just to simply ask them, would you like some help with that? If I thought I could help them. And that was my business and marketing strategy, you could say. And let me tell you, it works. And it takes out the vastness of marketing tactics and confusion about what to do and what to say, and it just feels so much more fun. And I also often ask myself when I'm caught up in something and I know that like I'm overthinking something, I literally go back to two questions. How can I make it easy? And how can I make this more fun? Like literally just spend 5 minutes thinking about that and coming up all the ways I can make it easy and make it fun. And that gets my brain fired up and, accessing more higher level thinking and ideas. And it comes up with a simpler and light-hearted way of doing something that perhaps my brain wanted to complicate. So lesson number 1, keep it simple and make it fun. Lesson number 2, which actually builds on that, which is it's all about connection. So this thing called life and business, it's all about connection, and from that kind of growth. And it's that simple, like connecting with humans heart to heart. And this lesson comes up time and time again for me because I am an introvert and I like my time and space. And also, I like to share value, and that requires me to create it. And so sometimes I do retreat and kind of stay within. And I guess you could argue that I'm connecting with myself, which, by the way, is also important. But when it comes to growing a business, so much of it, the foundation of it, is about relationships and your network and staying connected and building relationships and growing your network. Like, it's essential. And in corporate, I remember the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, when it comes to climbing the corporate ladder, or any ladder, quite frankly. And, I'm sure that you've experienced that as well. And so over the 5 years, I have connected with some beautiful people, particularly through networking and, being present online, and also reconnecting with past colleagues and people from, training programs, from doing my MBA at Winchester and my coaching certificate at Henley. And, just, past past friends and school buddies and things. And to be honest, it's about going back to basics. And for me, playing to my strengths and doing what I do best. And that literally is connecting heart to heart. And that can be in person or virtual, or even like this via a podcast. Like, this is just you and I connecting right here, right now, having a conversation. And from my experience, connecting with others at a human level, in a human way, just talking about life and dreams and adventures and all the things that are perhaps getting in our way, not trying to sell something, no agenda, no attachment, just genuine interest in the other person. This is the foundation of a business and a marketing strategy, quite frankly. So, number 2, it's all about connection. Lesson number 3, get good at making decisions and loving them. In business and again, in life in general, we make decisions all day, every day, right? Everything is a decision. The little day-to-day things and the bigger life decisions, we are making decisions and choices all day long about all the things. And so my lesson is, why not get good at decision making? This is the skill to have no matter what you do or who you are, right? Just get really, really good at decision making and have a process or a way of making decisions, and kind of just follow that. But what slows us down is, particularly as high achievers, is wanting to make the right decision. And like I say that in kind of air quotes. And from my experience in business, we often don't make decisions because we don't know what the right decision to make is. And then we end up procrastinating and wasting time spinning in indecision, right? This decision that we need to make just lingers around and it just slows us down and it takes up brain capacity when we could be doing something else. And something my business coach teaches that resonates is that there is no right decision. There is just the decision that we make right. And so my lesson and invitation to you is to just decide, right? Tap into your intuition, like that kind of gut feeling, and let your intuition guide you and be your guide. You'll know what's best for you by the way it makes you feel inside. And for me, it's usually expansion, perhaps with some excitement, and there may be nerves, versus a decision that feels tight and like constraining, and a real sense of resistance, like my body repels it. So like you can literally sit with a decision for a few minutes and like say, if I decided this, what comes up in my body? If I decided this, what comes up in my body? And our body is full of wisdom, and I always let it guide me. So whatever you're contemplating, just decide what's best for you, what feels right for you in the moment, and go for it, right? And I often do check in with myself and ask, is this the right decision for me, for my business, for my people? Does this bring goodness to the world? And largely if it does, then it's a no-brainer. Like, just decide which way to go, and then our number one job, and what I've learned, is to just love my reasons. like come up with all the reasons why I'm going a particular way, which is something I do. And then it's just reminding myself of those reasons and loving my reasons behind the decision that I made. And along with that is like having this willingness to be wrong, right? Making a decision and moving forward is better than procrastinating and staying stuck, because when we make a decision, we learn, right? We move forward and we learn and we grow and we evolve. And so we've got to get good at making decisions and loving the decisions that we make. And then as we go along and we learn new things or circumstances change, we get to change that decision. Like, as a business owner, you have that freedom to change and make another decision or decide differently. Like, that's totally fine. And again, you love your reasons behind it and then kind of move on and implement that decision, whatever that might be. So that brings me nicely onto number 4, which is make friends with failure fast. I have learned the best way to progress in business and entrepreneurship is to fail fast. And I'm sure you've heard this, but what I mean by failure is not hitting your goals, not fulfilling your expectations or intentions. And let me just say, this has been a challenge for me. My background, being in a safety critical environment of air traffic control, for all of my corporate career, there was little, if not, zero tolerance for failure. And so my brain has been conditioned in a way that resists failure, right? Failure is not an option. And I know that's the case in many other industries, like, kind of the health profession, like, medical, in terms of being doctors and surgeons and what have you. And so, failure is not an option. And so our brain is wired to align with that. However, as I say, when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, for me, building a successful business, failure was something I had to learn to be okay with, and that building this idea that failure is part of the process and being willing to fail was necessary to succeed and achieve my goals. And it's one I continue to work on, I have to admit, and it's been a learning curve, trust me. I have so many examples of fails, like where I didn't hit the mark or made a decision that didn't quite go my way. I remember early on, I think it was just after lockdown, I signed up for this UK professional network or something. I had a call with a couple of guys and they kind of sold me this online networking outfit. And on the surface, it looked good and it was in keeping with my strategy of meeting fun, interested and resourceful people. And it was in the UK. And it was a 1-year subscription. And for me, it didn't work. I think it was about £1,500 up front, but it just wasn't my thing, right? Now, it's no disservice to the network itself. It was my thinking, right? I am very much about connecting human to human, and the idea of kind of, cold connecting and messaging people just doesn't resonate with me. I'm all about being open to invitation and inviting people in towards me. And I could do a whole podcast about examples of my fails and some of these things. And in fact, I do have another episode which is called You Either Win or You Learn. So if you are in the thick of any failures, take a listen to that, because I do reframe failure, and it's been, as I say, a learning curve for me. Another perceived failure, you could say, was the launch of my coaching program, because I didn't hit my numbers. But because I've made friends with failure over time, and over these past few years, I know that it's not a failure as such, because you either win or you learn, or you either earn or you learn, right? So I either get the clients in terms of revenue in, or I get the learning from it. So you either earn or you learn. And I have learned so much from that launch, and that was my second proper launch, that it blows my mind. And the only way that happened was by doing the launch, following the process, learning along the way, no matter the outcome. Now, I know that it feels hard and disappointing, and I did have the feels, like 100%. And that happens when we don't hit our goals, but that doesn't have to mean we're not good enough or that we should give up. It's the opposite. It means that we are passionate about what we're doing and that we care. And for me, that just fuels my my determination, and this determination to figure it out and keep going no matter what. Because no matter the outcomes, if you took positive action towards building your business or your career or whatever it may be that you're striving towards, that can only bring about change and something good. So make friends with failure, my friend. It's part of the process of growth, 100%. Lesson number 5 also builds nicely onto that. Lesson number 5. The second arrow is optional. So if failure is inevitable and it's part of the process in, business world and entrepreneurship, it can feel like an arrow in the foot, right? So the fact that, I didn't hit my goals, let's just say, felt like an arrow in the foot. And I felt disappointed, right? Let's just be honest. Because, I didn't hit my intended goal and things didn't pan out how I wanted to. I got something wrong, I made a mistake, failure to deliver on the target or the goal that I set myself. But here's the thing, and something I've again worked on a lot over the years, right? The second arrow in the foot is optional. Let me explain. So the first arrow is, not hitting our goal. And yes, that's a setback and a disappointment. And, we feel like we've been shot in the foot. The second arrow is optional. And that optionalness comes from the judgment, the self-criticism, and the comparison on top of the perceived failure. Right? So it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot twice. So like shooting yourself in the other foot. And, it's already hard, right? Growing a business, climbing the corporate ladder, whatever it is you're aspiring to, there's challenges along the way. But we don't have to make it harder for ourselves, right? The second arrow is optional. So I know times where I have, my mind has gone to a place of I should know better. I should have figured this out already. I should be further ahead by now. And that kind of self-judgment kicks in. And then also I've looked at others and compared myself to others, like in terms of where they are and where I am and how they figured it out and how they're ahead and how their stuff works and mine doesn't. Like, all of that is optional. And I have learnt that lesson that the second arrow is optional and it is unuseful. It is not necessary. And so now, I catch myself. And I had this conversation with my clients actually just last week, which was about judgment. And the way I notice if my brain goes to judgment is largely when the word should just comes up. So if I notice either within or something that I say and it's I should, or even I shouldn't, I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't be taking so long. Any should or shouldn'ts that come up in any conversation I'm having with myself or somebody else triggers to me that I'm judging. And so that is the point that I kind of catch myself. And that is the point for me that I go to curiosity and I invite myself to get curious about whatever it is that I'm judging against. So therefore, I'm able to see some learning from the thing, whatever that might be. So, like, by not hitting my targets, I can really see that. Number 6, be a sponge, not a rock. I was talking to a lovely lady a few days ago and saying that I was celebrating 5 years in the business. And she asked me what it was like when I first started the business. And I said, back then, I had no idea what I was doing, what I was in for, the marketing, the social media terminology, you know, call to action, link in the bio, a LinkedIn banner, headlines, funnels. Like, I knew none of it. I just had a spark within me to help other high achievers be the best version of themselves to achieve whatever it is that they want. And that was my calling and that was my purpose. And so I described it to her in a way that I was like a sponge, just like, an actual sponge, something that continues to soak things up and kind of then releases. So I was a sponge. I was a sponge to learning, a sponge to connecting with people, a sponge to trying out new things, to exploring new ideas, to adapting and changing. I was a sponge to free classes and webinars to help me figure things out in terms of messaging and storytelling and branding. I was a sponge to be open to receiving and saying yes to opportunities with the mindset of like continuous learning and improvement along the way. And I was a sponge to figuring it out. And something that really helped me with that was Marie Forleo's concept of everything is figure outable. And that's her book. And I really tapped into that, which is just leaning into that and being a sponge to all the learning, all the growth, all the wisdom, and making it work for me. And that is the key thing. Like, early on, it was sponging it in. And then as I've gone along and learned and evolved and developed, it's really leaning into my way of doing things and being clear and conscious in terms of what I'm sponging in And if it's not for me, then kind of letting go and leaving it behind, like you squeeze the sponge and you let go of the water, excess water, whatever it might be. It's that kind of idea. So in my experience, you have to be a sponge and not a rock. And the rock element is, the opposite to a sponge, which is kind of hard and not open to new ideas, not open to anything. It's just like Teflon, very closed and, not flexible or bendy. Or so yes, be a sponge, not a rock. Number 7 is one thing at a time. As high achievers, we want to do all the things. I know probably after launching version 2 of the business, which was post-COVID, I wanted the professional website, I wanted a personal brand, a photo shoot, I wanted some good looking photos, I wanted to connect with people, I wanted to learn and take classes, I wanted to be out there coaching more people and building my experience. I wanted to invest in software and buy a domain name and an email address. Like, there was so much I wanted to do. And my to-do list was always growing and adding. And, I kind of looked left and looked right, and it was like, oh, it's just me then. There's no one else, just me then to do all of this stuff. And so lesson number 7 is one thing at a time, right? One step at a time. And that requires prioritization. And another book I highly recommend is called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McKeown. And he talks about being an essentialist, which is about a disciplined way of thinking. And it means challenging the core assumption of I have to do everything. And like for high achievers, it's like, and I want to do it now. Like, patience is just not a thing. And going from I have to do everything and replacing it with the pursuit of doing the right thing in the right way at the right time. So there's this real disciplined way of thinking about what's essential. And it's something my business coach taught us, which is to have 3 essentials, to have 3 things that you're working on in your business at a given time. And if you do those things right, then other things just become unnecessary or not needed. And suddenly like this long list of things just starts to diminish. And it's been a really, really great way of operating, this sort of essentialist approach in terms of marketing and selling and, like day-to-day being. And another practice that I adopt is writing out my 3 MITs, which is my 3 most important tasks for the day. And I have a sort of like a daily journal, and I'll just write those 3 things. And so that keeps me focused, and I get those 3 things done, and everything else is a bonus. So the objective is to keep moving forward one step at a time, but being really clear and specific about those 3 things and those essentials, particularly when it comes to business or whatever it is, project, whatever it is that you're working on. And I don't know who said it, but maybe it was Martin Luther King. But you don't have to see the whole staircase. You just need to see the first step, and the next step will be revealed. And genuinely, I have leaned into this. It's not been easy, but I have really focused myself on one step at a time. And I invite you to do the same, my friend. Number 8, I have called Who is the Glue? So before I started the business, when I was off sick, I was forced to slow down and reevaluate who I needed to be beyond my corporate and professional role and my title and my duties in order to get better. And at that time, I was off work for 6 months, and it became mind over matter. And for the first time, I intentionally turned inwards. And, that is the story if you haven't heard it already. And I immersed myself into wellness and nurturing my mind, body, and soul in a way that I hadn't before. And in the process, I discovered a fundamental truth. It wasn't about what I was doing or doing more, because as high achievers, we're all about doing more. Like, what else can I do? What more can I do? Because what I'm doing isn't enough. It wasn't about that. It was about who I was being, what was happening inside my mind and my body when I was doing the doing. And that was a realization that I had. So, who is the glue? And the words I was using, my language, my tone, and the energy behind the conversation I was having with myself and others. So, lesson number 8 is, as I say, who you're being is the glue. Because it's not about what we say or do, it's about how we say it, right? Who we are being when we say it. What's happening in our body on the inside and outside, right? Our body language, our facial expressions, eye contact, kind of what are we doing with our hands, like fidgeting or not. And so the next time you're communicating with someone or taking any action in that kind of dialogue with somebody, whatever that might be, writing an email, delivering a presentation, having a conversation with someone, I would invite you to just pause and notice who you're being. And again, our body never lies, right? We will feel it. If we're being true to who we are, we will feel good and assured within, and that will radiate. And if we're trying to be someone we're not, right, we're feeling doubtful or judgmental or self-critical, that is also radiating on the inside, and people tune into that. People feel that and experience that. And that's not who we want to be. And we all feel the lack and insufficiency and not feel confident in what we're doing and how we're showing up. And I remember in corporate learning about a concept, and I believe it was from a researcher of body language who broke down the components of communication, and he found 55% was non-verbal, 38% was vocal, and 7% was words. And that was termed the 55-38-7 formula. I think it was Albert Mehrabine something. And this is a whole different podcast, like another podcast, but like literally 55%, let's just say, is body language, 38% is like tone, and 7%, only 7% is words. So my lesson is to always check in with myself and ask myself, who do I want to be? right? And bring that feeling to mind. Do I want to be confident, inspiring, helpful, whatever it is, based on what it is that I'm doing? And then I intentionally be that person in how I show up in what I'm doing. So, who is the glue? Number 9, stay true to your values. One of the things I've tuned into before starting the business is connecting with who I truly am, right? Again, when I was off sick, I spent a lot of time going inwards and discovering who I am and what I'm about. And I did a lot of personal development in terms of knowing my identity and discovering the real me, free from the roles and titles and duties that I had identified myself with. And values is one of those topics that has so much goodness. And for me, I'd done values work during my corporate days, but it didn't really sink in, if I'm honest. But also, our values change as we grow and evolve. So, like becoming a parent, certainly I noticed that, my values changed. And as you experience growth and evolution in terms of your circumstances in life, we evolve and our values evolve. And so the lesson here is to know what our values are. And this is the first step towards living up to them and staying true to them and demonstrating them in the way I was showing up and in my business. And I gave myself some time to reflect on what's important to me, and I focused on what I stand for. And it's kind of like a bit of a guiding compass, or like a mode of operation, because core values are kind of what makes us who we are and what really is important to us. And of course, it's unique to each and every one of us. And so, we have to do this work. And I actually have a values exercise that I do with my clients. And it's something I make a point to do at least once a year, to reconnect and review my values and reflect on them and really see how I'm leaning into them and how I could lean into them more. And as I say, like evolve them as I grow and as the business grows. And it's worth saying, like for me, my personal values, who I am as a person, and my business values are aligned because, they are linked. And so my 3 personal values at this point are service, personal growth, and well-being. And my 3 business values are connection, positivity, and excellence. And for me, excellence is about doing the best with what I have, like showcasing the best of me and my work. And actually, it's worth saying that linked to values and staying true to your values is remembering your why. Remembering your why and the purpose behind what you're doing. So for me, like building this business and building a business that I love and that works for me and works for my brain, it's just imperative. And my why is all about serving others, right? Serving others, living life on my terms, flexibility, freedom, autonomy, and fulfilling my purpose, being of service to my high achievers, and being a role model to them, and being a role model for my beautiful children. Like, that is my why. And that is a lesson that is really important, because as obstacles come our way in business, we do have to remind ourselves why we're doing what we're doing, and how it's something bigger and more meaningful and more purposeful outside of you and contributing to the world. And largely, when I remember my why, it just fuels me and takes me to another energy. Finally, and this is a biggie, I suppose they all are, but this is a biggie. Number 10, your health is your superpower. I know what it's like to be sick, like really sick, be on your knees, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing when you're going to get better. And also, I've had COVID twice over the past 5 years, but largely I've stayed well otherwise. But this lesson hits hard. Like, I remember when I got COVID the first time, which was in January 2022, after nursing my two kiddos and husband getting it. So there was this period of like 2 months, so it felt, and we were like in those strict guidelines of isolating and, you know, like not mixing, and everyone had to be separate. And oh my God, it was difficult in one household. So the two kiddos got it first, then Steve got it, and then literally I think he came out of 10 days or 11 days of isolation, and then I got it. And so like he cleaned out the room, fumigated everything, and then I went into the room, and like then I had my 10-day stint. So we've got nothing if we've not got our health and wellness. And for me, that's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, right? It's our wellness as a human being, all elements. So we must make time for self-care. Like it's such an important thing for me, and we have to prioritize it. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase, you can't pour from an empty cup. If if we don't take care of ourselves, we'll find it harder to find the energy and the mindset to take care of others and to show up in our business and in our work in the way we want to. And, you know, only this, when we take care of ourselves, only in this case, we're pouring that back into the business. So when our cup is full, we're able to pour that back into the business and to help things move and run smoothly. So for me, like when you run a business, whether it's solo or running with a team, you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulder. You wear so many hats, and I talked about all those hats earlier on. And there are so many different things putting your attention and needing your attention for you to pour into them. And we want to show up fully as our best selves in our business. So we get to give it the attention and the passion it deserves. But we don't have the energy or the right headspace. It's not possible to show up as we like. And so it's so important to take care of yourself. And it's like the oxygen mask analogy, right? You have to put your mask on first before helping others. And I made a deal with myself at the start of my business to always take care of myself and always to prioritize myself. And the way that looks for me, like just a few of the things, is that I start my day for myself. I wake up early and fill myself up with meditation, a workout, yoga, a liter of water before the kids wake up and before any demands of the day. And it's like, that's like my sacred time. And yes, I have to get up early, but honestly, it changes the energy for the rest of my days. Like my cup is full and some, and then I start the day. And another thing I like to adopt is a daily walk. And like that, again, is a non-negotiable for me, because when I was off sick for 6 months, when I was able, I walked and connected with nature. And it was summertime, and I realized, honestly, this is crazy, but I realized for the first time that there are no walls or ceilings outside. There is just beauty and growth and vastness and the warmth of the radiating sun all around. And so that is such an important thing for me. And I take my brain for a walk, quite frankly, but it like just clears the cobwebs, allows me to breathe in some fresh air and just see the vastness and the beauty and open my mind to new things. And so for me, that is something that really is a good thing for me, for my mental health, my physical health, and like that kind of emotional energy. But what I would say is find what feels good for you, right? Be kind to yourself and explore and try things out and make it work for you. There is no right or wrong here. There is just taking care of yourself in a way that works for you, because health is our superpower always. And we're responsible for taking care of ourselves one thing at a time. Right, one thing at a time. Can't do everything, but do one thing at a time for a short space of time, and then we can just grow on it. So there you have it. Can you sense the determination in me? Wowza, I feel it, and I am certainly leaning into this feeling. Thank you for sticking with me. I know that was a long one. I hope you found some gems in my 10 lessons over 5 years in my coaching business. What an amazing business baby to offer me such goodness and us so many insights to take away. Finally, I wanted to just say, if you know me and have been with me on this journey, you know that I believe everything happens for a reason. And so nothing is bad. Everything is good. It's all good. Sometimes we know what that goodness is, but sometimes we don't. And that's all good too. So just let that sink in. Oh, so as I say, this episode is a bit longer than I was anticipating. So next week, I'm sharing the thoughts I've tuned into that have helped me along the way in an inspiring and uplifting meditation practice, so that you can tune into those and let them sink in. So be sure to tune into that next week. Otherwise, what can you expect from me going forward? Much the same to be honest, but we are on a personal growth journey and it's unique to each of us. And for me, you can expect another version and transformation based on what I have experienced. So the transformation I've experienced over these last year by year, but also this 5-year point, you can really expect to see even more of that, and really for me to lean into the maturity and the determination to keep going. So finally, let me just say, I am so grateful for you being here and part of my community. Your support means the world to me. Like you just being here, listening and tuning into me, and for us to have this conversation, it fills me up. With that said, if you loved what you have heard, please share your feedback with me. I would love to hear from you. And additionally, I'd be super grateful if you could leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This simple act helps me reach and impact more people on their personal growth journey. And that is what I'm here for. and I would love your support on that. So thank you again for joining me on this journey of reflection with my 10 lessons. Keep it simple and have fun. It's all about connection. Get good at making decisions and loving them. Make friends with failure fast. The second arrow is optional. Be a sponge, not a rock. One thing at a time. Who is the glue? Stay true your values and know your why. Remember your why. And lastly, your health is your superpower. Thank you for joining me again today. Until next week, keep shining your light and may you always live your true self. Namaste. Bye for now. Are you a high achiever and action taker who values personal growth? If so, you know that the only barrier standing between you and your true potential in this next chapter is your own limiting beliefs and stories. It's time to break free and become the best version of yourself doing what you love. During our free consultation call, we'll connect on Zoom to delve into your journey. We'll assess where you are now, where you aspire to be, and most importantly, how we can bridge that gap together. In just 60 minutes, you'll gain valuable insights and clarity with absolutely no obligation to commit. It's that simple. The session is guaranteed to be deeply supportive and insightful, leaving you with a clear roadmap to become your highest self. Don't hesitate any longer to tap into your goodness. Book your free consultation call now. Go to www.namishapatelowen.com/book consult. Your higher self awaits.